Welcome to Vertical Presents. I'm Julie Strange, Marketing Manager at Vertical Communications. I am very excited today to bring you a deeper look at 8x8's new Engage platform. I know some of you have attended our 20-minute sneak peek back in February. Thank you for joining us again. Engage is designed to streamline customer interactions and deliver a more unified experience. You're going to see how these new capabilities impact your team right away, so let's jump in. I'm pleased to introduce Brian Sutphin, Channel Manager at 8x8. Brian, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Julie. Appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for joining today. As Julie mentioned, this is kind of part 2 in a series we're doing on our Engage solution. Today is going to be a little deeper dive than we did last time. Before I turn it over to Jeff, I did want to share a few slides, kind of lay kind of the groundwork for what we're going to be talking about today. So let's talk about Engage here. So let's see. Share my window. And let's put this in presentation mode. Okay, perfect. So I want to start off by talking about kind of a simple statement, right? CX has left the building. So what do I mean when I say that? So customer experience doesn't live behind a desk anymore. Nearly 60% of engagement now occurs in motion. So in hallways, back rooms, field sites, store floors, between appointments, from a retail associate juggling in-store customers or calls to a field lead resolving delivery issues while walking into the next stop. In today's world, CX is handled by people who are rarely stationary. And yet most of these frontline workers are still operating with systems built for another time. Their tools assume that the customer journey starts and ends in a fixed location. They're having to, access real-time visibility, consistent tools, or shared context in every interaction. It's way harder than it needs to be. So calls are repeated, details are missed. The customer and the employee are navigating blind. So we saw a void in the marketplace. There was a void no one was filling. So when you look at what's happening right now in the marketplace, there are 3 kind of massive shifts happening in communications. The first one is that contact centers are shrinking to a certain extent, right? AI is handling a larger portion of what contact center agents do today. So think of like order status, password resets, basic troubleshooting. The technology to do this exists today. The only variable is the speed of adoption, and the adoption is accelerating. Shift 2 in the middle is knowledge work is transforming. So AI agents are taking on almost half of what knowledge workers do. Meeting summaries, data pools, routine analysis. The humans that are focused on complex judgment, relationship management, work that actually requires, human beings. The third shift is kind of that middle ground, which is really what matters the most for this conversation today. When you take the first 2 shifts together, you're left with a gap. The traditional contact center is shrinking, but basic UC tools were never built for customer-facing work. And that's where there's a massive underserved workforce. Specialized, high judgment, customer-facing professionals who still need tools built specifically for them. And that's the void. So who lives in this void? All right, who are the people we're talking about here? We refer to them as expert workers. So when I describe the person, I want you to think of your organization. So I guarantee you that you have dozens, maybe hundreds of people that have this need. An expert worker is a customer-facing employee, but they're not a formal contact center with a queue, a supervisor dashboard, an SLA target. If you can see on the right some of the examples I gave, they're an account executive who needs to follow up with a client after a big renewal conversation. They're a healthcare coordinator who calls on a patient 3 days after discharge to see if they're doing okay. They're the field tech who manages a complex install or needs to communicate with 3 different people across the customer's organization at the same time. They're collaboration heavy, constantly pulling in teammates and experts. They need the full customer history in front of them the moment that call connects. They're judgment driven, needing the right information at the right time, and they're data hungry. They can't operate effectively without knowing what happened before. What did the customer say last time? What's their account status? Is their account open? So you may not realize it, but this kind of mismatch between the contact center and the UC your customer facing employees that are mobile, not having the right context at the right time, it's costing you money, relationships, and real customer satisfaction. But this is where Engage plugs in to help solve this need. So to kind of drive this home a little better, I have a short 1-minute video I want to share with you guys, and then we're going to turn it over to Geoff to kind of bring Engage to life for you and walk through some use cases.
Customer engagement happens everywhere. 60% of customer conversations happen outside the contact center, and most teams using disconnected tools that weren't built for the job. Now, imagine one workspace where every interaction with a coworker or a customer lives. So your teams can stay connected, in sync, and keep things going while on the move. 8x8 Engage gives your teams one mobile-ready experience for everything. Internal updates, customer conversations, and insights that drive action. 8x8 Engage, one place to connect with coworkers and customers.
Okay, Geoff.
Brian, thank you so much for that introduction and a really good level set as to what we can do with 8x8 Engage. We took a quick look at it back in February, but we wanted to dive into actual use cases. And Brian challenged you to think about your own companies and how this could kind of work. And he had a couple of good use cases up there. One for sales, for account executives, and we've all seen these true contact center sales environments where there's business development reps doing tons of outbound call after outbound call, but there are then account executives who have a ton of interaction with their partners, with their customers, but they're mobile, they're taking meetings, it's a different kind of workflow. We looked at healthcare and nurses stations as one of my go-to examples. And then in that video, we looked at a really interesting retail scenario. It was retail, but it was a bike shop. So we weren't talking to a cashier. We were talking to someone in the back, still working in a retail environment, but actually working in the bike shop. Brian called them expert workers. I had my bike in the shop a lot last year. Talk about expert workers, the people that can get those gears aligned, true experts. I want to walk through a couple of other use cases. I'm going to look at tier 3 tech support. I'm going to look at another retail use case, and then we're going to look at a local government case. There's so many tools that we get with this Engage platform, and so many tools that we need to do great customer experience. Customer experience, it demands contact center level professional tools like Brian mentioned, but we need to give it to people in a format that they can consume, that they can use. It's not going to take them out for a day's worth of training. So let's take a look at a tier 3 tech support engineer. And what I've got up is 8x8's basic soft phone, 8x8 Work. I know a lot of you on this call are very familiar with this. Here's my call history. Some of these calls came in through contact center queues, but they're showing in my regular call history. I've got my voicemail, my call recordings. And since I'm using 8x8 Engage, I've got a couple of additional tabs here. First, I've got my assigned queues, and these are contact center queues. So I've got the full power of a contact center, an IVR as complex or as basic as I want to be. I can dip for data into my CRM system and route appropriately. I can do callbacks. I've got full IVR, full contact center capability. And answering it is this incredibly simple and straightforward interface. Let me throw a call in. and allow me to mute in a couple of places very quickly. And we can see I had some basic contact center information when the call came in. I know it's a tier 3 call. I've got the option to transfer this around the contact center. I can escalate this to one-way video. We'll look at some really good examples of that once we get into our local government example. I'm going to go ahead and end this call. And we'll see now I'm in a basic wrap period. That's going to wrap up automatically without me having to do anything like manage my state. I'm not putting that huge contact center burden on this employee. Now, I said that Pablo here, he's in information technology. He is one of our tier 3 engineers. He's one of our, we used to call him graybeards. And Pablo has access to all 3 tiers of queues. And he's going to occasionally jump into tier 1. Sometimes on a Monday, the guys he trained last year, he wants to jump in, help out, reset passwords. He's a really nice guy. Sometimes he has to buckle down. He's only going to be available for tier 3 issues. This is an employee that is going to coexist with an existing contact center. Our tier 1 tech support agents are very different than Pablo. They have a shift that they have to cover. Pablo has control over his own shifts. Every once in a while, he works all weekend long upgrading network routers and then just takes Monday and Tuesday off, emails his boss, and he's gone for 2 days. We love it when he does that. He has, he's self-directed. He's highly trusted. Pablo never minds getting the kind of calls he's supposed to, his tier 3 calls, even his tier 2 calls when it's his time to handle those queues. Having been that kind of tech support agent, having been in a company long enough to know how everything works, I'll tell you what really drove me crazy was people reaching out to me directly for something like a password reset just because we'd met once. Pablo can put himself in do not disturb or into away. He can put himself into away, no one going to be able to message him directly as an employee. But if they come in through one of the queue tiers, he's going to get that interaction. So we're giving Pablo the level of tools that he needs. Another thing Brian mentioned was that context, that follow-up. Well, we're recording all of these calls, and previously, when the tier 1 agents had to take that call out of the queue and then just transfer it to Pablo, we lost the context. Now, some of these calls are demo calls and they look a little bit silly, but if I come down for not too long, I'm going to get the right call that has full transcription, that has our full transcription, has our interaction summary, has our action items. I think I've placed too many test calls in here and it's not finding the call that I was thinking of. Here we go. This is a good call. Monica called in, hey, we're having a full outage on the main website. This is the type of interaction that we don't want to lose track of. And B, we want to notify everybody in the company about this. My tier 1 agents are about to start getting calls on this. Well, I have an interaction summary built with AI. Brian talked about how we're using AI tools to augment the knowledge worker. What a great example here. And Pablo's next step, he was going to call our ISP, and that's our next step. We can have this built into an automated workflow. So it automatically creates a ticket based on this interaction with this interaction summary, with these action items. And that can be, set up an alert so that our tier 1 tech support agents know exactly what's happening. So I love to start with tier 3 tech support as an example of using Engage. Because one of the ways that we can think of Engage, and maybe not the best way to think of Engage, but sometimes we can think of Engage as sort of a contact center light. Now, these guys in tier 1, they're going to need a full contact center interface. They answer calls 99% of the time. We probably want to get them some AI coaching on their calls, easy access to a knowledge base. But we know that our tier 3 engineers are a very different breed than our tier 1 engineers. And I think that's clear to people in most organizations. And we also know that the tier 3 engineer occasionally does jump in and answer tier 1 questions. But this is someone who has autonomy, who can decide, no, I don't want to deal with callbacks. I will answer live calls coming in from the right tiers. I'm not going to be available for chat today. And if I need to pause my queues, I can fully pause all of my queues and come back. So the tier 3 tech support engineer is a great place to start talking about Engage use cases. But contact center light's not the best way to think about Engage, because I think it really limits our use cases. The best way a lot of times to think about Engage is to think about the cases where our normal PBX tools just aren't cutting it. Because, right, these are call queues, but most of us know we can set up a very basic call queue inside of almost any PBX, including the 8x8 PBX. So why do we need these contact center level tools? And retail is one of the great use cases to look at when we're looking at where a normal PBX just doesn't cut it. And one of the normal ones, one of the ones you've got to look at, if you're using ring groups, PBX call queues, an on-prem PBX, there will be times when you overload your capacity and you literally drop calls. In retail, it's very easy to know that every single missed call is a potential missed sale, and most of the people I know in retail can have a dollar amount associated with each call, the likelihood of that closing, the value of the sale, etc. So Engage does a couple of things. First, by putting those calls into a contact center, and we don't have to. I said we could have a full IVR. We don't have to. We can have a message that says the store's location and operating hours and go immediately into one of our queues if we just want to get to a live human very quickly. If there's a case where calls start to back up, then I can bring in people from other locations perhaps into the queue, overflow those calls to a general contact center. Or just as a supervisor, be aware of what's happening in my organization. I'm checking the clock. I promised Brian and Julie that I wouldn't forget to talk about supervisor workspace, to talk about the supervisory tools and the insights you get when you bring in Engage. So let's take a quick look at retail. Another one that a lot of us kind of understand inherently. And I talked about how important phone calls are in retail. But retail is changing very quickly. It is very sophisticated. Our retail organizations are offering more types of services, and they're needing to meet customers where those customers live, including the digital world. So let's take a look at some of the digital tools, some of the AI tools that get opened up when we bring in Engage. So Paws and Claws is my retail organization. It's a Petco, it's a pet vet. It is your modern pet store, which means we're not just selling dry dog food, which I guess is out for delivery on Sunday. That's good to know. My dogs were getting hungry. We're not just selling dog food and leashes. We're doing veterinary services. We're selling pet insurance. We're doing grooming. And we've got a wide range of employees who are all customer facing, but they're not contact center employees. They are great at interacting with the public. They do that 24/7. But a lot of that time is in person. If I can give them access on their mobile phone, access on a store device so they can answer interactions as they're walking around, we've really increased that number of people who can take an interaction over having someone just sort of leaping towards a a ringing phone. So with 8x8's Intelligent Customer Assistant, we get a couple of things right off the bat. Here, we've recognized Sarah as a returning customer. We did a basic lookup. She has dog food coming in. I need to know where my closest location is. And I'll go ahead and give my zip code. And I can open that up in Google Maps, get my directions, send that to my phone. Let me make a grooming appointment. When we're looking at this kind of we used to call them bots. Now they really are virtual agents. This is fully agentic. You can see I'm spelling things terribly. It's not throwing the bot off. It's not throwing my virtual agent pause off. Let's see. Reacting. My pet's name is Baxter, and I'm going to just talk conversationally. 10 a.m. for my doggo. And we can automate things like making appointments, like service reminders. Awesome clause. So there we go. So not only was I able to make this appointment automatically, I'm getting an SMS reminder immediately through 8x8's proactive outreach. I will get appointment reminders both on Friday evening and Saturday morning, so I don't miss this appointment. And if I have to cancel, all I'm going to do is reply to that SMS. It's going to go into this same virtual agent, and I've got control to cancel my appointment, change my appointment, update my appointment. We're past the time where you can, a customer is going to accept a message of please call our store during our normal business hours if they reply to an automated text message. They expect this kind of full 360. They also expect to not be locked into this kind of automated experience. I'm going to ask for a live agent, and I'm going to respect that promise and get a live agent. I'm going to go ahead and show you this on my phone. It's going to take me just a second to share my mobile phone. But again, I'm answering calls from contact center queues, be they digital queues, be they voice queues. I'm handling those in a mobile environment. So here's Sam. Sam works for my retail store. Sam is a pet groomer. He washes pets, cuts their hair, etc. He is happy to take care of his customers. Now, Sam's got his inbox here. He's also got control over what queues he's in. So I said, Sam, he grooms pets. That's his primary duty. So there is a good portion of his day when he really can't take a digital interaction. His hands are wet and they're covered in soap. He can still stay available in his voice cues. He's got his AirPods in. He can sort of answer them with a nudge, take those interactions, and really increase not only the size of the workforce I have answering those calls, because those were calls that Sam could never take before, making sure that we get the call to the right person. If we determine this is a grooming call, we're going to prioritize our pet groomers who have this level of expertise. One of the One of the places that 8x8 and especially 8x8 and vertical together have seen the best ROI on this type of a feature is local government public sector. And that's because nearly everyone in our local government handles citizen inquiries as part of their job, but we very rarely have, we have our 311 group, but outside of that, we very rarely have groups that are fully dedicated contact center like to taking citizen inquiries. Whether we're going over to the planning department, parks and recreation, or the library, our employees handle tons of customer interactions, both in person, both over the phone and digitally. And this is the kind of tool that they need. Suzanne just works in the city manager's office. She's a general clerk. She's got a couple of basic queues, license and vital records. She also backs up public works and sanitation. That's not her primary job, but she backs up public works and sanitation along with record pulls. Let's go ahead and send a call in. So as the call came in, I see that this is a public works call. Some of the use cases that we have seen incredible ROI in government service, and especially local government, might not be the ones you expect. Trash delivery, and we've done a lot of automation through our intelligent customer assistant of trash pickup scheduling, reporting if your trash didn't get picked up correctly, being able to reply to SMS to schedule bulk trash pickup. I'm going to show you how we can send this call to a one-way video invite in just a second. And that's something we have seen so much of in the public sector, especially in housing. Anytime we can reduce a truck roll, we save money. And I've been saying that when gas costs half of what it does right now. Looks like truck rolls are going to continue to be more expensive. And here is a citizen calling in to report a pothole on their street. Well, they called the right people, Public Works. Hey, do you have your cell phone with you? Would you mind if I send you a link? Now, the citizen is getting a link. Oh. Can't type my own phone number in correctly. The citizen is getting a link to this video meeting. They don't have to install any specialized software. They just get, here's my cell phone, that's a text message. I'm going to click on the text message. I'm going to allow my camera. Oh, there is that pothole. Mr. Customer, do you mind if I take a screenshot of that? And do you mind if I grab the location off of your phone so that I can open a case with my road department, send a truck out, and have this hole patched? So things as simple as filling potholes, trash pickups, or looking at a mold issue or a potential broken window down at one of the parks buildings, all become available not only to a contact center employee, but available through Engage to everybody in the organization. When we bring Brian back on in a second, we'll start spitballing some more use cases, but hopefully between this and what Brian talked about, it gives you a flavor of what we have available. And as you're thinking about that, the other thing that we get with Engage is the kind of monitoring and supervisory tools that have always been relegated into a contact center. In fact, 8x8 Supervisor Workspace is our contact center supervisor workspace. The analytics reports that we have are our contact center analytics reports. You as a supervisor have access to all of this power. And yeah, this is a widgetized dashboard. I can come in here, customize this for myself. If I'm doing evaluations on my employees, I can see those scores. I've got a number of tools here, but this isn't just a dashboard. It's an interactive portal where I can look at Victoria and say, oh, I want to go ahead and monitor Victoria's calls right now. And maybe I want to monitor Olive all day because she's a new employee. I can start that monitor now. She's not on a call, but I'll listen to all of her queue calls throughout the day. I can go ahead and change people's status, log them out. Brian mentioned that the contact center was becoming smaller, and some of it's becoming smaller because some of those jobs will go to AI, but we're also seeing more of these ad hoc style contact centers. So yes, I have full skill-based routing, and I can build as complicated of an overflow as I want to as an administrator. I can also just come in here and say, I'm going to take Victoria out of the queue. Hey, Victoria, can you cover insurance? Oh, you can? I'm going to make you available so I can manually control these queues. If I'm doing post-call surveys, I've got the results right here. We looked at the analytics tools that we had for call recordings. We looked at that tier 3 tech support agent. Let's go ahead and look at those same tools that I have as a supervisor. Of course, I've got access to my entire team's calls, not just my own calls. I can view a summary, the same kind of AI summarization, sentiment mapping, etc., that I get as an engaged user, I've got as a contact center employee. So I'm not losing track of these interactions as they move through the organization. I'm keeping them all where I can see these interactions. I'm keeping them all on platform, and I get the tools that I need to really make deep business decisions based on this data. So that gives you a good look at what we can do with 8x8 Engage. Brian, what other use cases have you thought of? What are some use cases that you've seen in the market as you've sold and as you supported this product and sold it with Vertical for the last year or two?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, since it's gone GA, right, and it's become more well known. I mean, the use cases kind of continue to kind of bubble up and some interesting ones. So, I mean, I had a customer who dealt with blood and tissue collection, right? So they had folks kind of out in the field waiting to be dispatched to a hospital or to a morgue or something like that to collect samples of whatever they were doing. So it's a great fit for them, right? They can get the context of what they need and where they're going, and the customer and a lot of the details that they wouldn't get on a system that was really just designed for internal communication, like a traditional UC PBX. But yeah, I mean, insurance agents, sales reps for like a car dealership, right? They're extremely mobile. Hey, how much is this car? Is it still here? Is it sold?
Brian,
running back to the building, they have it right there, right?
The guy who got the commission on my last car that I bought was the guy who answered the phone.
Exactly.
And I'll be honest, he did not do a whole lot on that deal. He had a junior guy that gave me my test drive. He had a different guy in the office that handled the paperwork. But that's such a great example, right?
Yeah.
I think when we think about contact center queues, right, a lot of times some of us think about people who are trying to avoid taking calls. No, man, the car salesman wants that call. Every single incoming interaction is the potential for a new deal, a potential to hit that bottom line. So I think that's a great use case. I loved the video that you showed, Brian. First, did a great job, I think, of level setting on what Engage is. But that use case, not only retail, but a bike shop. I got into cycling last year a little bit, but not enough to know how to fix my own bike. So I had my bike in the shop a number of times, and seeing these true experts on how this mechanical device works, and then seeing how they work. They're in the back throwing a chain on. They're running up to the front to deliver a bike back. They're available, they're not available. And also, if they've fixed your derailleur and then your bike chain comes off, they want to get that while they can, while you're available. Get that interaction digitally. Look at that bike derailleur through video elevation, through that one-way video chat, and fix the problem when they can.
I know you touched on something pretty important, Jeff, that this Engage, it's really not like kind of like an add-on. It's almost its own really solution. Correct? It's kind of it's more UC plus versus contact center minus. I don't know if we want to kind of touch on kind of some of the areas when you would need a traditional contact center seat versus Engage, if that would be helpful for the audience. Or
that's a great topic. And I think that tier 1 versus tier 3 tech support group is a great example. The tier 1 employees spend the majority of their time answering interactions. So the fact that they have a system where they need to manage their state, where it really takes over their life, that's important to them. They also really benefit from AI coaching. 8x8's Smart Assist will listen to the conversation. It's an AI bot that listens to the conversation, and it talks to the agent. It suggests knowledge-based articles. It does look up in knowledge systems. Now, that bot isn't going to be able to answer tier 3 questions, right? That is, once we've got to tier 3 because it wasn't in the knowledge base. So the tier 3 guy doesn't benefit from that as much. Another great example, as we look at local government, almost anybody in local government is interacting with citizens at least as part of their job. But then you look at 311, for instance, and in 311, we often are spending all of our time dealing with customer interactions. The ability to pop up a record in one of our database systems so I see all of that citizen's information, or again, that kind of agent Smart Assist really is helpful in those kind of organizations.
But if you have a resource that they're going to need to be part of like an outbound dialer, outbound campaign, or they need like really deep CRM integrations, like a Salesforce, for an example, or a third party workforce management or something like that, that would probably steer them more towards a traditional contact center seat, contact center agent. Correct? It's really more for that mobile worker where the use is not quite enough.
Correct. And so outbound is a great example because all of us make outbound calls, right? We all call somebody. What we're talking about here is an outbound contact center where, for instance, where I'm given a list electronically of these are the people I'm going to call, and I'm going to hit dial, dial, dial. And sales becomes the first thing we think of, right? But local government, what about people who owe their tax bill and they have not responded to our SMS messaging? We haven't been able to get a hold of them yet. My town had quite the event. There was some pretty major gas leaks, and they actually had to turn off gas to the entire town. They were trying to get a hold of me to get my gas meter turned back on. I was out of town. And to be honest, Brian, I was ignoring them. I was on vacation. I wasn't thinking about this. I knew everything about this that got through this event through Facebook. They escalated me from, because they had to get everybody's gas back on. They needed to wrap this up. They escalated beyond just sending me text messages to set that appointment to actually putting me in an outbound queue and having someone specifically call me. Now, so that is a great example of true contact center where we're doing that type of programmatic outbound dialing. Now, when I actually talked to someone to arrange my service to actually get my gas meter put back in, my call was routed appropriately to a guy on a truck actually in my neighborhood. So he would be a great Engage user. So the return calls from that outbound campaign, if it was a missed call, could go into Engage. So a lot of times you're going to find that it will be a mix of users, that there is a small group of people in the enterprise that are dedicated contact center employees, but there's a bigger group or a sizable group certainly that doesn't fit that traditional definition. And that's where, engaging with the vertical team and letting us work with them to work through use cases, work through what type of tools each job needs and is going to benefit from becomes incredibly useful.
Geoff, thank you so much. I want to leave it open for any final thoughts before we wrap up.
For me, I love Engage because it's the tool that people have been asking me for 20 years. And that goes where they don't want me to go, which is Contact Center Lite, right? Because it's so much more than that. But I have installed tons of contact centers that had some group of employees where it just didn't work. And they kept asking questions like, Geoff, well, how do I answer these calls from my cell phone? And I kind of had to say, well, you really can't. And so many groups where we need to be mobile now. And 20 years ago, maybe it was maybe it was sort of acceptable to say, I'm sorry, you can't. Luckily, we don't have to say that anymore. This meets so many different use cases. Every time I sit down to talk about Engage, I think about new and different ways or specific use cases that it can go through. So it's the tool that we need now, and I'm really glad that we have it.
Your best contact center agents have all the context they need when a customer calls, right? They know purchase history and things like case status and communication preferences. And that's really what Engage does. It brings that same intelligence to the person in the field, the salesperson, like some of the examples we gave earlier, making a follow-up call, or the nurse sending a post-discharge check-in, et cetera.
Yes.
There's people that are truly in front of your customers on the shop floor or whatever. So, they need that context. They need that intelligence. And today's marketplace, we expect it, right? I mean, customer experience is really one of the last differentiators we have in the marketplace, that experience. So,
and when you go with one platform like you have with 8x8, you gain a couple of things, right? I've been in a training this week that tried to put every single AI company on a slide. I don't know that they got them all, and each little square was tiny. I couldn't read them. One thing you get by going with vertical and 8x8 is you get a reliable partner. We've both been around for decades. We're going to be around for decades. We'll support this product. We'll support you and your business. Secondly, when you go with some new AI vendor, for instance, if you're looking to add in an AI assistant, where are those calls going to go when we need to talk to a live agent? Some of the worst experiences that I've had with agentic agents are ones where they just would not let me talk to a human being, or it finally said, okay, well, you can call this phone number. You need that full 360 experience. So when we send out a notification that trash day has changed because of the holiday, that a reply saying, how do I pay my bill, as out of left field as that is, gets handled correctly and not handled with a brush off, like, please call our normal phone number.
appreciate everybody's time, and hopefully this gave a better picture of what Engage is and kind of various use cases in the marketplace. And as Jeff said, just reach out to Vertical. They're our go-to partner on this, and we'll be happy to work with it.
Thank you all for joining us today. We hope this session gave you a clearer look at how the Engage platform can make an immediate impact on your customer experience, both for your customers and your employees. If you have any questions or want to explore next steps, our team is here to help. Stay tuned to vertical.com/webinar for all our upcoming events, and mark your calendars for May 4th. We'll be bringing you another 8x8 Vertical exclusive, this time a dive into 8x8's AI Studio. You're not going to want to miss this one. Thank you all for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.